Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. We are a little bit off course from our normal routine. Today is Wednesday, and this episode is going live on Monday. Holy smokes. I've got to give it up to my team for putting this together last minute. I'm actually recording the intro on Wednesday. The interview was recorded a little while ago, but we have had a crazy pants week. It has been one of the greatest weeks of the year for me. We had our aesthetic marketing seminar on Monday. That's our free live event for our Spa Retail Rockstar students. It was here in DC. We had women flying in from Boston, from Louisiana, from all over the country. It was so cool to see all of these students coming together, connecting with one another, and learning together. It was truly, truly amazing. And then on Tuesday, we had our VIP day for my one-on-one students, which was just amazing. I have such deep connections with every one of them. And so it was just so special to be able to spend the day with them. But that is why we are a little bit off track on getting our intro recorded. But the universe works in mysterious ways. I'm actually so glad that I'm getting to record this after those 2 days, because something that came up a lot on Monday was managing your team, being a leader. You know, a lot of the estheticians that are in our program in Spa Retail Rockstar, they start out as solo estheticians, they grow, and then they get to a point where if they want to expand more, they need to hire a team. They need to hire another esthetician. They need to hire a receptionist. They need to hire an assistant to help them be able to do their best work. And it's completely different managing a team or managing an employee, managing an assistant, than it is doing the work yourself. It's a real challenge, especially if you've been a solo esthetician for quite a while. And my tough love always comes out and says that if your employee or assistant or whomever is not performing in the way that you want, the first place that you need to look is you. Because it always starts at the top. It starts at leadership. So are you communicating the expectations with that individual properly? Are you onboarding them properly? Are you giving them adequate training? You know, did you go through the hiring process correctly and actually hire the right person and not just hire out of desperation? There's a whole system to this thing that's actually a whole nother podcast episode. But my interview with Njeru, a good friend of mine that we're going to play here in just a second, Njeru is a natural born leader. He and I were in a coaching program together, and we connected on the very first day of the program. And I don't know, he's a big dude. He's this big, lovable guy. He's probably like 6'3" or 6'4", and I am not a big person. But somehow the two of us just completely connected. But this interview, he talks about leadership. And one of the coolest things that he talks about is a personal growth plan. You know, we talk about business growth, but we don't talk about personal growth and personal development. And that was, you know, one of the highlights on our VIP day is, you know, it really, a lot of the hard work is dealing with your own crap, you know, getting over your ego, getting over your fears, getting over all of those things to actually put yourself out there and do the work and show up as a leader and the creator of your own life. So I'm super excited that this episode is going live today. I know you guys will enjoy it. Njeru is an absolute just dream. He's an awesome, awesome person, incredible story, but he lives his life. He focuses on personal development, and he is such an incredible leader. So anyone who is going to have a team, if you already have a team, this is going to be an extra special episode for you on how to lead. And if you don't have a team yet, or don't know if that's a direction that you want to go, it's still great to listen to understand how having a personal growth plan can help you in business and in your personal life. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. Awesome episode. Be sure to tag me, message me in Insta stories if you want to keep the conversation going. And obviously over in the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group, we can continue to chat about it over there. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and play that interview with Njeru. All right, Njeru, I'm so excited that we finally got you on the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Finally, I have been waiting for this day. We've spoken about this for a while now, so I'm absolutely excited, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I remember the very first time that we met, it was at James Wedmore's training event, and you and we somehow we buddied up that first day, and our conversation was so natural and so flowing, and you weren't quite sure what you wanted to do with your business yet.
Yes.
But you knew that your primary focus was on serving others through teaching them how to lead.
Absolutely.
In the past couple of years, it's been so amazing to see, watch you kind of from the sidelines and see how much you've grown and how many people you've been able to help and serve through your events. And so for me, it was like, I've got to get Njeru on the podcast, because so many of our spa owners, a lot of our listeners, they're maybe going solo, or they're solo and they're wanting to move into building a team.
Sure.
A big piece of that, as you know, is, and you said it perfectly before we hit record, was moving from me to we.
Yes.
So how do you set yourself up as a leader and showing up in that space? So that's kind of setting the tone for our conversation. But before we kind of go off on a tangent, which we can do so well,
sure.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got into this leadership space.
Well, so first and foremost, thank you. Again, it's been a joy to get to know you, to grow with you, and to enjoy this journey that we've been in the last couple of years. And so I live in New Jersey, and originally I'm from Kenya. And it's very interesting that leadership is what brought me to the US. Many years ago, I happened to have picked a book by a guy called John Maxwell. And at that point in time, this is 15 years ago, I lived in South Africa. And I made up my mind that I was going to come and actually get to learn from him. Long story short, I moved to the US, and within 9 years, I got an opportunity to work with him. And he's really considered one of the world's number one leadership guru in this space. And so I spent the last 7-8 years really learning and focused on business. Two things that I'm absolutely passionate about is leadership and entrepreneurship. That's been pretty much a path of my life. I'm either in a business, doing a business, and leading something. So leadership has always been a part of who I am. And I've always had this hunger to want to grow. So, since when we last spoke, I have built, my own, it's called the Leaders University, and where we teach a lot about leadership and we talk about entrepreneurship. And for me, I focused around people, and necessarily creatives, people who want to create impact-driven businesses in the world, because that's really what I wanted to do. And it was an area that I needed to learn. And it's been a fun, great joy. And we have had, almost 3 events now in New York City. And, as you said, we were sitting at a table and I wasn't sure. And this is a short, 2 years ago. And I think that every idea that you have that you can persist upon and stay focused on it, always has an opportunity to bear fruit. So as we've grown, as we've changed, as we've adjusted in this course, where I've also personally have had to come from me to we. 2 years ago, it was me, and I could do all the work, and I was the maverick around town. I figured everything out.
Organizing your own events and all
everything.
that.
I was an event coordinator. I bought the stuff. I made sure that I looked for the venue. I was the welcoming team.
You were like looking at Carnegie Hall. This is not like an event at a hotel with like 10 people. This is you're being humble here.
So you could imagine, because by the time we were done, and it was an amazing event. Our first event, we were in New York City, we were in mid-Manhattan, and we went all out, and we went even up to Carnegie Hall and all that stuff. So by the time we were done with the event, I probably was tired for about 2 weeks. It has been, and so there's also been, in going back to what we were just talking about, there's been the fact that the more responsibilities you take, or the bigger the game you play, the bigger chances are that you're going to have breakdown. Mm-hmm. Now, how we respond to that breakdown really boils down to how we lead, really boils down to personal leadership. Because if you're playing a small game, you won't have problems. You will not have stretch problems. You will not have, breakdowns in your business. If you are playing a really small game, you will handle it. But if you're really out to play a big game to expand your business, to expand your influence, to expand your income, what that brings to the table is a constant stretch of your personal leadership. And so one of the things that I think, sorry?
Isn't it important too, even if you're a one-woman show, that you need to be living that leadership even when it's just yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the most scariest things that a lot of entrepreneurs, and even if you're, and when we say entrepreneurs, we could be talking about the spa owners.
Absolutely.
We tend to get very focused on the skill set that we know. Mm-hmm. And what we've learned and we've gone. So we really get good at that, but we forget to grow ourselves. We forget to realize that the lead to the growth of our business is always going to be our personal growth. Because you can learn all these other things. If I needed to learn something new, if I needed to learn how to do the new facial, I needed to learn how to do whatever it is, I can go and learn that. But the bottleneck to how far I can take my business or how far I can be able to lead people always falls down to your own personal growth. So I'm a big proponent of the fact, like you said, you've got to have a growth plan. You've got to be able to be learning, reading, and growing at whatever stage you are.
And we talk about so much in all types of business, mindset. And I think that's a really loose, almost commercial term now, where people are just like, oh, you have to have a positive mindset, and it's like, does that mean that I need to write in a gratitude journal? Does that mean that I need to see the glass half full?
Right.
I think it's more than that. Like for me, having a positive mindset is being able to make opportunity out of obstacles. And it's being able to find a way to find something positive. And I think that, for people that don't know your story, you kind of breezed by it really quickly, but you came to this country with not very much money.
I had $749 and did not know a single person. Not one single soul. Yeah.
And now you are a multiple 6-figure, if not 7-figure business owner in a short period of time. Yeah. And that I see so many estheticians so the average esthetician in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, makes about $33,000 a year.
Wow.
There are estheticians out there who are making 7 figures.
So what's
the difference? Right?
Exactly.
It's the fact that there are some women, and I say women because we're mostly women in this industry, but so many women, they don't give themselves time to do personal work, or they're stuck with those beliefs or stories that they're telling themselves about, am I smart enough because I went to beauty school?
Yeah.
I know, how can I call myself an expert? How can I, whatever, all of these limitations that it's like, it's true. You can go to Google and figure out
anything,
how to do social media marketing or how to do whatever, but it's like, giving yourself the time and space
Yeah.
to do that work is so important. So I love the idea of having a personal growth plan to help you.
I'll tell you something that is very interesting. So we live in a world where everything we are taught is in an informational paradigm. So if I did not know how to do facials, then I'll go to school and they'll teach me how to do that. Now, the question is, how come knowing really hasn't made a difference? Because everybody could know everything. And I mean, we are always, that's the paradigm that most people think that growth occurs. So most people will go and say, I don't know how to drive, so I'll go and go to a driving school and I'll learn how to drive. So we are either in a paradigm where we don't know what we don't know, and we know what we know. So we will go and learn something we don't know and put it back into this little box. Now I know how to drive. Now I know how to do a facial. Now I know how to do this stuff. And we live in that world where we are only confined. But the real growth doesn't happen there. The real growth happens in your blind spot. The real growth is where the transformational work works. And I think, like you said, a lot of people will call that, mindset. And I think it's been commercialized quite a bit as the new buzzword. But that's the place where you are talking about, how do I find the opportunity out of obstacles? That's where you now refine your understanding and your relationship to things like failure. That's where you find your ability to go beyond. I keep telling some of the things that I see a lot of clients is I say, everybody is big on setting goals in January. By February, all those goals are out of the window, because they only set it in one paradigm. We were told that if you set goals by the so-called gurus, then you're halfway done. No, goals are like a coin. There is two sides of it. There's a goal getting and there's a goal setting. Most of us are phenomenal at goal getting. That's why we are fantastic at setting up this, but we don't know how to actually create the structures to put into place so that we can actually achieve what it is that we want to do. Now,
I see this in so many, you see it with budget, people like write a budget, but then never look at the budget.
Never look at it.
Right. Yeah. It's like, all right, we have the best intentions, but how are you holding yourself accountable? And how are you revisiting that you are staying on track for that thing?
Yeah. And one of the things that I have come to understand, and when you ask me, language creates everything. That's the one thing that probably my greatest growth has been in really learning to understand how I speak to myself. Because language creates everything. And most of the time I realized that I could say what I wanted out there in the world, but what I said to myself internally was I wasn't worth it. And my biggest challenge and my biggest growth has been me overcoming the stories that I have told myself. And those are stories that were told for me from past experiences, could have been from, things happened in my youth. Things could have happened in my growth. I could have started a business and I failed. Now, it's never about the actual event. 99% we are driven by what we said about what happened. So your business, your first spa failed. Big deal. But what we said about that is, I'm not good enough. And now you get into this new business and open this new spa with this subconscious story that says, I'm not good enough. So could you imagine how this new business goes? And so when we start talking about really learning how to win this game of self-leadership, it starts from self. You can't lead people. I remember back as a leader, even in previous businesses that I had, I thought I was an answering machine. I thought that I was less of a leader if they didn't come to me and I did not have an answer. I would actually create an answer so that I could sound intelligent, right? Because I'm supposed to be the leader, right? But I didn't even know what I was doing. And so those are the evolutions that you start learning. And when you get to a place where you realize that your business goes as high and as far as you go, and people will always follow a leader who's higher, who they're looking at. People, you never go and say that, hey, you know what, I want to follow the loser. I want to follow the champion in whatever it is that I'm doing. I like what he's doing. I like what he's achieving. But more important, we've also got to distinguish between, when you become an entrepreneur, there's always a certain aspect of you're the boss, you're the leader. And we tend to lead from that perspective. And you will always never lead people simply because you write their check. People will follow somebody who cares about them. People will follow somebody who's giving them a vision of their possible future. And in that part, you've got to grow.
Yes.
You've got to become somebody different to produce a different result. And so when you start realizing there are things that I can delegate, there are things that so-and-so can do better than me, and not feel intimidated by that, and not feel scared. Oh, well, she's a good stylist. Now she might take my clients away.
That's something that comes up so much, I think, in spa, but also in the world of entrepreneurship is nobody's going to do it as good as me.
Sure.
Nobody's going to care as much as me. And it's really hard to see in your business when you put so much love and attention.
Yeah.
But if something's not happening the way you like it, the reality, the tough love answer is that goes back to you.
It does.
You communicate clearly how you wanted something done. Do you have SOPs in place? Do you have regular check-ins? You can't just throw someone in and expect them to run your business like you have after you've been 5 years doing it.
Right.
And to say, figure it out. Like, why is it not working the same way as
right? For 5 years, you've been messing up, but you got somebody coming in and you want to chop them up the first time they mess it, right?
Right.
But here's what it is. While there are even structures, one of the things that I always encourage people is have a method to show people. So one of the things that I do whenever I have somebody here and I want to make sure that they've learned what it is or how I like things done, guess what I do? I have a system of teaching them. So they come alongside me and I do it and they watch. Then they go and they do it and I watch. And then they finally do it and I come and I check. So there is a method of me mentoring them through the process more than me just saying, okay, well, go and do this. And then I get frustrated. So I show them, I lead the way by showing them, well, this is how we do it. And they watch as I do it. They have an opportunity to ask questions. I have an opportunity to teach them at that process. Then I now give it to them as an assignment and I sit back and I watch them do. And so in between those 3 times, here's what happens. They're getting more comfortable. They're actually getting to learn how we do it. And here are chances. By the time they get to the 3rd and the 4th step of this process, I actually step aside and I allow them to bring in something that would elevate this whole entire process. Soon again, I become a student of the process again, because now I've trusted them. I've allowed them to do it. I've shown them how to do it. And if you really think about it, what do most people do? Come in and say, well, this is your new job. This is how you're going to do it. And then once you mess up, then we have a problem. Unfortunately, as a business owner, some of those costs, some of those mess ups actually result in financial cost for you.
Absolutely.
So I think there's got to be a way, and all that stuff is how you lead your people determines how far your company goes.
So for the estheticians out there that are solo or just starting to build their team, or maybe you have a team and you're just wanting to improve the process, sounds like what you're saying, Njeru, is like have an employee or a team member onboarding process that they go through. Here's our front desk. I'm going to show you how to do it. Then you do it and then do a test. I'm going to show you, I'm going to do our signature facial on you. You're going to do it on me. And then you're going to watch, or like whatever way we figure out to go through that process, and having a very clear step-by-step checklist.
Absolutely.
Of everything. Because it's expensive to have employees, you go through the interview process, the training process, the time that it takes to get somebody busy, which it can take a while and it can be stressful. And so getting these details fine-tuned and worked out in the beginning and saying, okay, like every time that something comes up with your new employee, that a frustrating situation happens, say, oh, here's an area of opportunity for a new SOP. Here's an area of opportunity to fix this now so that when we go through it again, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. 100%.
I love that. So 100%. I want to circle back and talk a little bit more about this growth plan for personal development. So how do you create a growth plan? Is this just like, I'm going to read a book a month, or I'm going to incorporate meditating, or like take these classes? Like, what is a growth plan?
Well, so great question. Great question. I think that first and foremost, growing is a holistic thing. There is you're taking care of, and I'm glad you brought things like meditation and taking care of yourself. There is you as a person taking care of yourself, because how you show up, your well-being determines your attitude. Your well-being determines, your energy in your business, right? So there is the personal taking care of. And so there is that part of being able to take care of yourself, mentally, physically. So I say, make sure you do that. So I think that sometimes we overcomplicate a lot of when we talk about growth plans, because I can tell you, I have been mentored by many people that I have never met. I've been mentored by being intentional. So there are books, there are tapes, they don't tapes anymore. That tells you.
I remember tapes.
Right? Well, so there's CDs and all that stuff. So, find an area, find somebody who connects with you, and become very intentional in being able to find those different areas. So one of the things that I have made as a rule for me is I read a book every month. I read a leadership book every month, and every quarter I'll probably read something else that is different, so as to keep my life interesting. So I'll pick an area. So I would look at it and I'd say, beginning of the year, there's 3 areas that I really want to learn and to grow myself. So it would be probably leading a team, and I would think probably say I want to do something around communication, and I want to do something around entrepreneurship. So what I do is I will go and find somebody who's good, who's refined, and who knows that subject well, and I'll take a book. I'll tell you, for example, one book that I have absolutely enjoyed. John Maxwell has got a book called The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth. It is 15 laws of growth that you could literally take, and you could study that book for a year. You could take Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. You could take books, but one of the things that I always say is 2 things. Is there's an aspect of being intentional about growing, which requires that it is a scheduled time. I spend an hour reading a book every day. Now, there's also an hour in your day where you reflect. And so there's a difference between reading and studying. A lot of people will take a book and read for the sake of reading. I take a book and I study it. I sit with it. I'll take a chapter, and I could spend a chapter for a week looking at what could I learn? What could I apply? What could I take away? What's a new idea out of this study? And I'll take that and I'll literally write it out. This was a great idea. What did I learn? Is this an area where I could grow? And I literally take that and I actually try and apply it to myself and into my business every week. And so I'll look back and say, if this occurs, could I have done that? If this occurs, could I do this? If this occurs, there was that idea. And so I'm literally making this book come alive through my day-to-day living.
I love that. And for me, I used to be an avid reader of physical books.
Sure.
And after I had my daughter, it was really a challenge for me to sit down and read. And so I've really switched over to Audible. To Audible all the time, that and podcasts. But you're bringing up something for me, because I used to be someone who would write in the margins, because there are so many ideas that come up. Yeah. And I don't know about anyone else's brain, but like for me, I'll get an idea and then keep reading. And if I don't write it down, then it is like lost in the clouds.
That's me. I can't lend you a book. I couldn't give it to you. It's a mess because I write everywhere.
Yeah. I have one of my favorites right here. This is by my nightstand. This is so like worn in, because for me, this book was such a game changer, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, about creating that systems-based business. And that gave me the freedom that I needed to not have to, even when I was just a one-woman show, to not have to refigure out how do I do a blog post, or how do I do, whatever I'm doing in my business, like recording it. And it's as simple as just doing a screen recording.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend forever doing that. But I love that. And I think that it kind of goes back to that, setting a goal, but then holding yourself accountable mindset. It's like, read a book, but then actually, what are you getting from it? And how are you going to apply that to your business? Because this book is 30 years of this man's life.
Yeah. How many millions of those books have been sold? And you really got to think, when you look at the treasure and the gold in that book, how many people have applied it?
Right.
And the difference is, you said that book is used because you actually took it and worked it out. You wrote on it, you took an idea, you applied it, and you came back and reflecting. And suddenly that book now no longer just becomes a couple of pages bound together. It suddenly becomes a plan, a growth plan that has allowed you to grow your business.
Yes.
But people don't do that. I mean, I think, I'm an avid Think and Grow Rich reader, and I've read it now, 7-8 years. I read it every single day. And it's a book that has sold
millions
and millions. But how come there are not as many millionaires in it? Because before I was taught how to actually study, I bought the book because everybody said every entrepreneur needed to have that book on their shelf. So guess what? I bought it. And everybody said that you have to buy the E-Myth. And guess what? I bought it. And everybody else. So people have shelf growth, not self-growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big difference. And goes back to something you said very, very earlier on, Danielle, was patience. Patience in your business. Patience in your personal growth. Right? And it's not you've got to be patient. And until you actually realize that you are either going to be the ceiling or you're going to be the pathway to the growth of your business, you'll start taking your personal growth very seriously. And when you realize there's two things, you don't have to have read 900 books to get this thing. You find the right books and you find the right mentors, because a lot of information is out there. We live in a world today that literally anything, cutting edge, transformative, is available at our fingertips on a simple phone.
Yes.
So how do I do it? So when I started reading the E-Myth, I had it as a book. I had it as an audible. So I every time I read that particular chapter, and I'd listen to it, because I learn by writing and I also learn by listening. So I'll go back and I listen to it. And as I stay with it, I start looking at what are some ideas. How could I apply that idea into my business? How could I take this and make it better, or align it to make sense exactly where I am? And as we've started, you'll soon realize that at one point in time, it served you as a solopreneur. And now it actually even serves you as one who has got, a support team, because principles are principles. You just have to learn how to apply it. But we've got also so much noise, Danielle. I mean, we listen to way too much stuff. We got this, we got that. We listen to this, we listen to everything else that everybody else is there, but never taking responsibility of our own journey, both as a leader and both as an entrepreneur. The difference between the woman who makes $33,000 in your business and the difference between one who makes a 7-figure is what she knows and what she applies.
What she applies. I don't think it's what she knows. I think it's what she applies.
Right. Yeah.
Because you see so many people, just like you said, I read the books, I buy the courses, I go to the conferences, but I'm still exactly the same. Well, what are you applying in your business? And the thing is with spa, like our industry, I truly, deeply feel this is such an important industry for the impact of our world. Like everyone talks about wanting to make an impact, but when you can heal someone's acne, when you can give a mom an hour to relax, when you can do something that helps someone look and feel their best, you are selling confidence. And when someone is confident, they can tackle the world.
Look at the ripple effect.
Yes, it's a ripple effect. You are a different person to your family, to your friends, at the workplace, when you look and feel good. And it doesn't mean that you have to have this magazine beauty. You are beautiful in the way that you feel your best. whether
Absolutely.
that means makeup or not makeup or what, but it's something that I think gets very over us. Like our people talk about, oh, the beauty industry, it's, vanity, or it's this like, I don't have money for that. It's a very like luxurious discretionary thing. But the
Right.
reality is it's like we talk about health. Skin is the largest organ on the body.
Mm.
Skin cancers are rising, and the majority of skin cancers are found in the outermost layer of the epidermis, which is the dead layers that if you're taking care of that skin, I mean, it's overall skin health
Yes.
in a physical sense, but also in a mental sense. And so it's really important work that these
Yeah.
women are doing,
Yeah.
and they are impacting the world in a way that they don't really get to see because society is so much about, oh, you've got to, keep up with the Kardashians or whatever, like that kind of
Version.
Asian,
Yeah.
but it's so much bigger than that. And it's so much more than that. And I just, it's like such important work that I want these women to realize what they're actually doing.
And I love what you say, because, if money is the only driving force, you really are playing small. If you're going to open your spa because you would like to be the richest in the block, you might be, but I don't think you're going to find satisfaction in that.
Money is really important to a certain point. Money is really important to make sure that you have a roof over your head, that you have food on your table, that you are not living in anxiety every day of just your basic needs.
Right.
Once you get to a certain point, your level of happiness and what gives you joy in the world doesn't change that much with that much more money. So
I think it changes when you distinguish the difference between riches and wealth.
Yes.
Right? That's where it changes. A lot of us are driven to be rich. And that is very selfish in regard, because I am, and you and I will both agree on this. I'm an absolute believer that, the world wants us rich. The world wants us wealthy, because the only way that we can make a difference in the world is through resources. And when you make yourself available and a conduit and a center for distribution for the wealth in the world, then you can make a difference in the world. You can go and touch people. You can change lives and do all these things. And that's where we all want to be, at a place where we become this distribution for wealth, that you are worthy and good enough that money can come and work in and through you. When you are looking for riches, you're a little reservoir. This is about me. And I think when you get to that, and this is a story of my life. At 25, 26, 27, I was a millionaire back in Kenya. I had more money than my entire generation had ever found. Miserable like hell. Because instead of me running money, money ran me. And it came from a place that I grew up without money. And when I got it, I thought this was the solution to everything. And so I chased it, and I became good at chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. And the more that came, the less I had, the less I knew myself, the less I enjoyed my life, the less I had meaning for my life. But when my life shifted to realizing that I have a purpose, I have a meaning, I have a greater goal, I have something much bigger than I am currently doing that I need to play in a bigger field, my purpose, my want, my desires, my drive changed. And so even as a spa owner, waking up every morning and realizing that you open your doors to change lives, to give confidence to other women, to restore that inner beauty in other women, to give that moment of peace in other women, just that moment of that mother who's probably just had a new child and has been stressed, for that moment, that hour.
Yeah, it's life-changing to have an hour just
right?
To be flat.
Yeah, it is heaven. It rejuvenates her. It brings her back to her family. And I think when you walk out into the world with that perspective, your clients feel it.
Absolutely.
The people who walk through the door know that you don't treat them like a number. You're not treating them like a transaction. They're people. And
And
people want to people.
I know it from both sides, because when I was practicing aesthetics full time,
Yes.
it's really easy to like, I can do hydrofacial in my sleep. Like, I can literally be there and go through the motions, and my mind can be completely somewhere else, and I can give an amazing treatment.
Right.
And it's really easy to get in that space because we get disconnected from what we're doing because it becomes work.
Right.
When I started cutting down and moving more into the consulting and management area, and then I would actually go in and get a treatment, I was like, this is amazing, because when you're working so much, you don't really have time. And you just, it's like when I ask estheticians, when was the last time you got a facial? It's like the good ones, it's like last quarter,
Right.
And I'm like, we're telling our clients to come in every month, but we're not practicing what we preach. And to have that time to receive and understand what that experience is like and how recharging it can be and how you just are glowing and feel so much better. Like, it's such an important piece. And it was really important for me to remember that and remember, like, hey, this is what we're doing for our clients.
So I have a question for you. What was the biggest shift for you when you came from that, both from the place where you are in the business every single day and now coming to help business owners? What was that personal shift in terms of your own self-leadership?
I think that when I was in the business, so I tend to be one of those people who, I just want to do it. I can do it faster. Let me just do it. And when I was in the business, I was always the first one out, the last one to leave. It was normal to work 60 and 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
I was like the definition of a hustler. Like, I lived and breathed.
You're going to die building this business, right?
Yes. And I became very successful and got a lot of titles and, fancy things in that way. And that served my ego very well.
Right.
But I learned that when I stepped outside, if I truly wanted to help other business owners, it's not about me doing the work for you.
Yeah.
It's about teaching you how to think and teaching you how to shift your perspective. And yes, I can easily give some, ideas of, here's a promotion that works, or why don't you try this? But it's really about teaching them how to own their own power. And kind of stepping back. So I think that was the biggest thing for me as someone who wants to just fix everything.
Right.
Oh, I could do this for you in 1 second, or, oh, let me do that. But no, it's really like, let me empower you to take ownership and to have that win and to see how amazing you truly are. Because
I hear you coming from power to empowerment.
Yes.
When you were solo, it was about the power, the ego, right? And you could operate in that way. But the way you operate now, where you have to be empowering, is a whole different way.
Yes. And I think in my 20s, I was really into how much money can I make? What title can I do? Like, I needed those ego things for me to feel like I was worthy.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. I'm accomplished enough, or whatever. And then when I hit my 30s, I turned 30, I got divorced. I was like I'm like, wow, I'm a 30-year-old divorced single woman with no kids. Like, I just felt like a loser. Right. And I was totally starting my life over again. Yeah. And I really got to the point where it kind of like had to strip my ego away and say, you know what? No, I'm going to do what makes me happy. Yeah. And I'm not going to worry what other people think, because my worth is not determined by what other people think. And it's definitely been a roller coaster. Like, I had to go up and down on some self-worth issues also, because I come from a family of immigrants, and not directly, but third generation. Sure. Very strong Greek and Italian roots, where education is such a big thing. Like, I come from a family of educators. And I'm making my career in beauty school.
Right.
And so then when I met my husband, who has his PhD from MIT, like the most, like the best school arguably in the world for engineering, it was an ego check for me to say, oh, okay, I'm just an esthetician. My husband's the smart one in the family. Like that kind of stuff. But then it was like, you know what? I'm really good at a lot of things that I do.
Yeah.
And I don't need a degree or a piece of paper. We are all the same. We contribute value in different ways.
Yeah.
And now at 38, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to really get comfortable with that and be okay with not having to have the title or not having to have all of the answers or not having to showcase every accomplishment that I've done. And I think that only gets stronger with age. That you become more comfortable with who you are.
Yeah.
My Aunt Karen always says, I'm like a fine bottle of wine. The older I get, the better I get.
Right. And I agree with you. So it goes back to what we were saying. I think when I look back, 90% of the things that have stopped me in my life, in my goals, in my pursuit, has been stories. I'm not good enough. I'm not the one with the degrees, and I'm not the MIT person, and all that stuff. And that's what most people are doing. So 99%, well, let me say, most entrepreneurs, spa owners or other entrepreneurs, will go out into the world, and the first most important thing they do is first they get into comparison.
Oh, yes.
And the first thing they do to get in comparison is you go and look at the lady who's got a 7-figure spa, and here you are at $33,000. And the first question you come and ask is, who am I to do that? Mm-hmm. And that question is never, Danielle, is never about ability. Because first and foremost, you probably figure out that she's probably been in business longer than you have. So there's that longevity that has been there. But that question is always about our past. And most of the time, until we start questioning the lens through which we are looking at our future, at our business, at our growth and our impact, free from the past will always be ahead of us. So I grew up as a poor African boy in Kenya, didn't have much. I didn't have the privileges and all these other things. But the things that my mother, I grew up, my mother, my grandma, my aunt were the most influential women in my life. But I can tell you today that the skills that they impacted in me has allowed me to travel the world, to live in 6 different countries, to wake up and come to America with nothing and just know I will make it somehow. Now, I don't know whether I would do it now at this age. I'd probably be freaked out. But I knew, I didn't know, but I knew that I had in me whatever it took. And I knew that I had the ability to learn whatever I needed to learn to be able to do it. Now, in hindsight, it was tougher than I thought. So is business. It took longer than I thought. So is business. I needed to become somebody different. So is business, and everything else that needed to happen in between. But until I broke through the story that I had about myself is the only time that I actually started enjoying my business. I started actually getting creative. I started allowing resources to come into me. For the longest time in my life, because of not having, I grew up that season of my ego. It was always about me. I never did a lot much because I was scared of losing. Mm-hmm. Every little I got, I held on to it. Every little I got, I held on to it. And in the process, everything became about me. But when I came from me and I decided to step into that world of empowering, I realized that, there's a saying in my country that says you cannot greet opportunity with a closed fist. Mm. Opportunity only comes for the person who's got their arms open. Mm-hmm. So whatever way, even how you think about your business as an esthetician, majority of the time, the difference between going from solo to a team has got nothing to do with the marketplace. Because there are people who are doing 7 figures. There are people right next door to you who are doing 7 figures. it's always got to be an attitude about how you look at your business and how you look at yourself.
So let me ask you this, because
Sure.
I know there are a lot of estheticians, and when you talk about growing up poor in Africa and that causing a lot of those beliefs, I'm sure it's not comparable, but there's still a lot of estheticians and people in this country who grow up hungry, who grow up in the welfare system, who grow up without a lot of things, and they hang on to those beliefs or stories. How do you get past that? What type of personal growth plan do you need to do to move past those particular blocks? Because it is true. Like, I see it with a lot of my students.
Yeah.
They're so amazing. They're like, I'm like, if you could only see yourself the way that I see yourself,
Yeah.
and what you're able to accomplish, but those are so deep rooted.
Yeah.
Do you think it was your mom? And
so I got to tell you two things, and I want to put this in perspective, is that even though I grew up in Africa and we call it poor, I've got to tell you is that we were, there was probably, I was upper poor, which means we had a meal, right? Because I knew there were people who just didn't have it. So I don't have that whole experience of, having that whole crazy background. But there was my mother struggled. I went to a public school. My school fees in primary school was a quarter, and they would send me home. I literally, in today's transaction, was a quarter, and that day she couldn't afford it. But we were not there. But here's what I've learned over time. One, it's what you expose yourself to, both in terms of reading, but also what you expose yourself to in terms of experiences. And the one most important thing that I have that truly changed that for me was finding somebody like you. Was finding somebody, like you said, somebody who sees in me what I still don't see in myself. Whether that was a mentor, whether that was a coach, whether that was what sort of a relationships. And I think later on in my life, I actually discovered the power of a coach and the power of a mentor. And that is probably what has broken me through, because then what I realized is that if I put myself in the space of somebody who can see something that I don't see, and I put myself in, particularly what I started finding was people who mentored me in the area that I wanted to achieve. So people who get to work with you are fortunate enough because you've been on both sides of this business. You've actually done the work, been recognized for the work, been successful in the work, and now you get to teach them. If I was in that position, then I want to be mentored by somebody who actually understands what I need and where I need, because you've walked my path before. So when we talk about a personal growth in here, one definitely was me learning to really distinguish the difference. And I wish I could tell you in a more profound way. I learned how to distinguish the difference between what happened, as simple as that, and what I made the story I made about what happened.
So what that meant for you, the reality of it, and then what it actually meant for you.
Exactly. Because here's what I realized. I live from the story, and the story is not real. So an example, I lost my mother at 18. I was an only child, and I grew up with a single mother, and at the age of 18, I lost my mother. Now, at that point in time, I could have gone anyway. I could have, I could have gone literally any way. And I could have made that be a story. And yes, for a period of time, I was, the single child. But there's so much that she had put in me in her short life. I lost my mother at 35. I was 17. I was 18, actually. So I lost my mother young. And so, but fortunately, life has a way that whatever she had taught me at that point in time kept me going. And I could peak points in the businesses that I've tried and have failed, that were not successful. And I had to start really going back to, okay, well, that business did not work. And here's what we typically do. when there is a failure in our life, we take that failure, that experience of failing, and own it. And then we start viewing life now as a failure, which is very distinct from the actual physical experience. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever driven a car that had an engine problem?
Yeah.
Why did you not decide that I will never drive again? I must, I'm a problem because every car I drive has got an engine problem. But we are able to overcome the fact that there's a difference between the engine and myself. In reality, we do that. But in real life, what we do is we take the experience and then we become that experience. And then from there on, we view life from that. So yes, could you have gone in the projects? Absolutely. I couldn't find 10, 15, 20, 30, 1,000 people who have made it from the projects. Did you end up in jail? Did you end up in poor conditions? Did you end up in difficult marriage relationships or abuse? Whatever it is that is there in life that has happened, there's always somebody who came out. And the difference is they distinguished what happened and what they told themselves about what happened, because we only live life based on the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. And I was thinking too, it's like, there's always somebody that has it worse than you.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're looking at perspective, there's always someone that has it better than you and always somebody that has it worse than you. It's just focus on yourself and your accomplishments and how far you have come.
Yep.
And that can really help you to finally feel that success and feel like you're at that end point.
Absolutely. And I really want to answer the question that you asked me. What's the growth plan? Here's what it is. Invest in something that's going to grow you. Invest in someone who knows what you're doing, and invest in somebody who believes in you. That's the plan.
For me, I've been working with high-level coaches for the past 2.5 to 3 years. And it's really like probably a lot of my listeners have been listening to me for the past 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah. And I've been doing this business. I've been in the spa world for 13 years. But it's really like, since I've pushed myself and done the uncomfortable work, and, that's what's really, and I continue to do that. I'm continuing to find people who can shine light on my blind spots and who can hold me accountable and push me to that next level. And that it makes such a difference.
And here's one of the things that I found very interesting. When I sit and I speak to people so first and foremost, you got to remember, as someone who came to this country, there is absolutely nothing you can tell me. There is still no country like America. This is still the country that there is absolute 100% opportunity if you want to take it.
Well, you are like the living version of the American dream, right?
Absolutely. There is nothing you can tell me. There's nothing you can convince me. I don't care about the political situations. I don't care about who was there. I don't care whether it happened during Reagan or it happened during Clinton. Today, as it is today, there's absolute 100% possibility and there's 100% opportunity. But the difference is it's only available for those who are willing to pay the price.
Yes.
That's the key distinction.
To do to reach your dreams.
The work. So when we talk about just listening to what you've said, I've done the same for the last, 2, 3, 4 years? Well, probably not. Probably for the last 7 years. My growth has been around me investing both time and treasure in a coach. Because I knew that left to myself, this is all I know. This is all I will produce. So I made a conscious decision of saying, I'm going to invest myself in a coach. I'm going to invest myself in a mentor. I'm going to invest myself in the right program so that I can actually grow. And everything is seasonal. My coach 7 years ago is not my coach today. He was there for a season and for a purpose. Took me to the next level. I found the next coach. next season, next purpose. And I kept doing that. And I'm constantly doing that, putting myself in a place where I'm going to be stretched. And I've realized, I mean, there's always this big saying that says, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. When I look back, when I was in my little self, when I made 100,000, I went back and looked for the guys who were making 1,000, because they gave me that power ego trip. I was the big guy in town. I could talk big, and it was ego. But when that shifted for me, and I realized, isn't it interesting that successful people, when they make 1,000, they go and look for the one who's making 10,000. Mm-hmm. And when they make 10,000, they look for the guy who's making 100,000. And when they make 100, they look for the guy who's making 1,000,000. And technically, somewhere around there comes a tipping point. And that happens. So if you're not consciously finding out, if you're at $33,000 as a spa, find somebody who's doing 100,000. There's something they know. There's something that they've learned. And in this case, where they have an opportunity and the privilege of learning from you,
and it doesn't have
a better place.
Like, there are, you say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're truly at a place where you don't have money to invest yet, these podcasts are free. YouTube is free. Do the work, get to the space, and then get to the point where you can afford to pay to get to that next level. But there's no excuse for you not. And that was one thing when I first started my business. I was like, I don't know any entrepreneurs. I don't know, I know I need to surround myself with other people. But we're a military family. We've moved 7 times in 6 years. So I'm constantly, being uprooted and moving to new areas where it's it takes a while to get to know people. And through podcasts, through the online space, through Facebook groups, I have an amazing community of people who I'm so honored to call these people my friends, because they're people who are showing up and doing the work. So that will happen if you set that intention for yourself. The internet is a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And, it's just, you have to set that intention that I want to surround myself with people who know more than me in this area, who are more accomplished than me in this area. That's why, I just joined a high-level mastermind, and I'm I am this small fish in the big pond. And
you always want to be. Right.
Exactly where I want to be.
You always want to be. Right. And when you think about the pond, if you keep expanding the pond, very soon you want to be the small fish in the lake. Very soon you want to be the small fish in the ocean. Right. Because when you get to the ocean, you're now playing a different league. Mm-hmm. And I've got to tell you, I still don't even buy this concept of people saying, I don't have the resources to invest. The first person who put me on stage, here's 2 things I learned over time. Every time we want to go out and ask for help, one of the things that majority of people will do will always go and find, how much can I get from Danielle versus how much can I give? Mm-hmm. And when you position yourself as a giver, most people will respond back as giving you. I found somebody who I wanted to mentor me, and I could not afford his conference. I literally could only afford his books and tapes. I listened to them, and I really got the philosophy of what he was teaching. And I reached out to him 3 or 4 times saying, I would love to come and help at your conference. I'll do it for free. I'll do it for free. And I pestered him. One time he just told me, okay, fine, we have something, come and do it, come and help. When I got there, the cameraman was not available, and he asked me, do you know how to handle a camera? I said, yes, I do. And I took out my phone and I Googled. I did not know nothing about, but I knew that if I can learn how to ask and hold it, I'll do it. And I did it. Next time I said I wanted to offer. 4 or 5 times down the road, I had a clear intention. And so every time I did something, I went back to him and I said, hey, you know what? I really thank you for what I did. This is what I learned. So I endeared myself to him. One time he was at a conference and the person right before him was late. And he asked me, you've always wanted to speak. I said, yes, sir. He said, I have 15 minutes. Are you ready? I said, yes, sir. He put me on stage.
Wow.
So when you say you don't have resources to invest, find a way, make a way, go to a spa that you admire, offer service, do something, get good, work your way to your dream. Most of us are waiting for things to align so that I can go and pursue my dream. And you'll be waiting until you grow old. But when you get into the game of making your dream come alive, here's what happens. People and resources show up.
Yes.
Help shows up. But if you sit back and wait, well, I can't be this one, or I'm comparing myself, or I don't have the resources to try this, or I don't have that, or I cannot afford it. Okay, well, you know what? I can't afford to get into her program, but be a participant in her podcast. I cannot do this. And gradually, somehow, the more you show up, the more eager you have, the more you start playing the game about your dream. Doors and opportunities open.
Oh, Njeru. You are like the motivational speaker. I need you to just like follow me around every day and be in my ear. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And so is there anything else, two things, anything else you want to add to make this episode complete? And please share where people can follow you and hang out with you and learn more about the amazing work that you're doing.
Sure. So, to complete this, here's what I got to say. It's a privilege to be here with you. I love what you're doing in the world. I love what you're creating in the world. And I could not think of someone who is committed, who's got her heart in this. I couldn't think of a better person to learn from. And I say this because I've been on the other side as I've watched you learning. And I would not, what a best place to start and learn. Again, everything happens as long as you get into the game. Performance is a result of taking action. And if you get into the game, if you start applying what you're learning, and it doesn't really matter where you start. What I know this is for a fact is this. I think there's a great saying that says you don't have to be great to start, but you've got to start to be great.
Yes.
Find meaning in why you're doing this. Far beyond just trying to make money, but find meaning and find purpose and find joy. Have fun doing this. And, I think all in all, as I say, I wouldn't think of a better teacher. I wouldn't think of a better mentor. I wouldn't think of a better coach than yourself. So, for me, it's an absolute joy to have shared this time with you. And I hope that this adds value to people.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
It added value to me just in this hour. It's been amazing.
Thank you. So again, you can find me again on Facebook. It's Facebook / both my names, Njeru, Njeru Nthigah. You'll find me there.
We'll put the links below this video so you guys can follow him. If you love Njeru and his inspiration, be sure to do that. Njeru, thank you so much for your time. I'm so appreciative, and I know that this will make a big impact for our estheticians.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.